Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. War is hell. The region that this podcast comes from has seen more than its share of wars in recent decades. As almost everyone knows, we are in the midst of another one, this time on a scale that hasn't been seen in Israel for half a century. The images of devastation are out there for anyone to see. At this point, Israel is on the offensive with the single-minded goal of resolving the Gaza issue once and for all. What happens over the next few days and weeks will determine much of the future of this region. Not everyone will like the outcome, but it will be what it will be. Within Israel itself, the mood goes from grief to anger to hope to joy, seemingly in the flash of a picture on a smartphone. One can go to a celebration while watching a funeral on a phone, or the other way around. One sees despair wherever one chooses to look, but also optimism of the highest kind if looking elsewhere. It's a strange situation, one that even Israelis are unused to experiencing. One of my sons got married Wednesday evening, and another rushed back from the Lebanon border to be there, only to return immediately after. My daughter went to her base the next morning, while her husband is somewhere on the Gaza border. It's strange. I am not going to speak about the war situation. Whatever I say will be outdated by the time this podcast airs. Instead, we shall discuss something else. We shall not discuss suffering and death and hopelessness, but life and joy and goodness. The reason for this is that we need to focus on the good in life, particularly when things look bad. It is simply a matter of human need. That is the way the mind has developed, for better or worse. We have an infinite capacity for dwelling on the problems in life, but an equally infinite capacity for looking on the bright side. It is truly remarkable that we possess this power, but we do. What is the source of this power? Is it the divine soul, or did it somehow emerge from the eons of the evolution of consciousness that are part of the distant past? Maybe it's a bit of both. How do we do this? How can we celebrate while the uncertain fate of over 100 hostages hovers in the backs of our minds? How can we dance at a wedding while warnings of a missile flying overhead flash on our phones and we rush to an air raid shelter? The answer is that we do. Psychologists or philosophers can speculate from here to tomorrow about what exactly is going on, but we all know that it is simply the human mind at work, doing what it does best. The birth of a baby and the death of a relative or neighbor demand equal space in our heads, and we somehow find the wherewithal to provide it. It sometimes seems that the more that is asked of us, the more we find out what we can do. That is who we are. Perhaps there is a method to this bit of mental madness. Perhaps it is the very reality of bad and evil and hopelessness that creates the raw spiritual substance for good and hope, and that sense that everything will somehow turn out to be the way it was meant to be. If life was one series of good experiences with no opportunity for the challenges of fear and evil, we might slip into a state of numb comfort and miss out on the true depth of life. We need the bad in order to appreciate the good. Without the negative, we wouldn't recognize the positive for anything other than the spiritual equivalent of the number 0. We don't necessarily look forward to bad times, but when we have undergone them, we are able to understand that they were there for a reason, and hopefully that we have become better people as a result. This week's Parsha is called Bereshit. That word is among the most famous in human language, in whatever language it is translated into. It is usually translated as in the beginning, but it could also mean in a beginning or in the beginning of. It is a showstopper of a word, the only fitting way to begin the Torah. It subtly asks the ultimate question of existence. How did what we call reality come to be? The next two words, bara Elohim, begin the answer to this question. They mean God created. The entire verse, which of course includes the ending of the heavens and the earth, is perhaps the most famous in all of human history. It asks and answers the question of existence. Despite all of our great advances in science and thought, there is a strong argument to be made that this answer has not been improved upon in the thousands of years since it first entered the human mind. We still haven't the slightest clue what banged the Big Bang. Some assume that it just happened. as if that settles the matter. Others propose theories about space and time and quantum states of virtual energy. It's all very exciting and interesting, but it just begs the question once more. Not that this word Elohim or God, or whatever word we choose to fill in those blanks, really answers the question any better. It is simply substituting one unknown for another. But at least it gives us a sense that there must be some greater reality that lies above or behind or within the reality that we inhabit. That alone is worth contemplating. The rest of the first chapter of this parsha details the subsequent stages of creation that followed the initial moment. They include the famous "let there be light" and "let us make man." We read of God seeing the light and recognizing that it is good, whatever that may mean. Then there is the very first instance of the crucial component that makes the world so varied and so amazing: separation. It was this quality, the reality of distinction and differentiation, that enables everything to be the way that it is. The first separation was between light and darkness, which are then called night and day. This was the end of the first stage of reality. This is followed by 5 other stages, each of which comprises an essential part of the biblical conception of the world. First, it focuses on the heavens and how it is distinct from the earth. This would have the most natural distinction to the biblical mind. The second stage is all about the earth. There is the distinction between the waters and the dry lands and the resulting creation of the first forms of life, the various species of plants. In the next stage, it's back to the heavens, with the sun, moon, and stars, each with their own distinct time and function. The 5th day witnesses the creation of the lower forms of animal life in all their species. Then comes the 6th day with the mammals, and finally the ultimate mode of distinction, human beings. There is a kind of unity with this creation, as humans are created in the image and likeness of God. But there is no question that despite the biological features we share with animals and even plants, we exist in our own distinct sphere of reality. We also create and can use our minds to dominate all else, for better or worse. After this is the 7th stage, in which creation ceased. We live in this stage now, for God is no longer the creative power behind the changes in the world. That responsibility has passed to us. At the close of most of these stages, we hear the same phrase, "and God saw that it was good." This is a simple phrase in Hebrew. There is nothing mysterious or incomprehensible about it. It's just that God saw that it was good. What does it mean for God to see anything? What does it mean for God to realize that whatever just happened was good? Perhaps this is an early example of the biblical tendency to attribute human-like traits to God. Or perhaps it means something else, that even for God, there is distinction between good and bad. It happens that at the end of the 6th stage, a slightly different concluding phrase is used. Instead of "God saw that it was good," it reads, "and God saw that it was very good." This small difference is easy to overlook. It is only one 3-letter Hebrew word tacked onto the word tov, meaning good. That word, which is ma'od, is neither Germanic nor deep. It is simply a Hebrew particle of speech that frequently goes unnoticed in the course of conversation or text. What is the difference between good and very good? How does this difference, whatever it may be, work when the one recognizing it is none other than God? The ancient Jewish rabbis explained this difference in several interesting ways. They tried to identify some hidden feature of the 6th day that bestowed upon that stage this extra portion of goodness. One rather surprisingly answered that was that this unique feature was what is known in Hebrew as the Yetzer Hara, the innate human tendency towards evil. While this may not seem like a very good thing, it did enable us to become who we have become. A second, perhaps more surprising answer is that it was the creation of death. While most people would not consider death to be a good thing at all, and certainly not something worthy of granting this stage the distinction of very good, it does illustrate a very important Jewish idea. Death is the driving force of all that we do. Our very awareness that our time in this world is limited spurs us on to make something of ourselves and to experience life to its fullness. These two ideas, both rabbinic explanations for a strange but simple phrase in the Torah, zero right in on that dichotomy between good and bad. They both suggest that without the bad, we cannot have the good. We need an internal mental drive in the direction of evil in order to take up the challenge of making ourselves good, worthy of being described as the image of God. We also need to die in order to appreciate the wonderful reality of life. If we lived forever, we would just drift towards some state of eternal sameness and boredom. It might seem nicer to us if things didn't have to be that way, but that isn't the way God saw things. And this description of very good is from God's perspective. There is another approach to answer this question. All of those earlier stages were indeed good. Even the sixth stage was good. But this final phrase, after the completion of all the stages, was very good. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Every one of those earlier stages was necessary for the complete picture. Without any one of them, without any single part of reality being there, no matter how seemingly insignificant, the world would be a lesser place. It is only when there is everything, the entire creation, in all its brilliance and all its conflict, that God could recognize that it was very good. We need the good and the bad, the distinctions and the unity, the light and the darkness, in order to realize that existence is indeed very good. Without any single piece of the pie, God would have realized that something isn't quite right. Good is an appropriate description of any aspect of reality. But when we are able to grasp the entirety of it all, to witness through divine eyes the wonder of the complete creation, even good is not good enough. It was very good. Shabbat Shalom.